Hello readers by eyes and by ears, this is Mari-chan and welcome back to my channel. Today we are continuing with another reading of Ballad of Sword and Wine, also known as Tang Jiu by Tang Jiu Qing. We are on volume 2, but guess what? We are finishing volume 2! So let's go ahead and read chapters 70 through 75. Chapter 70, Reopening. The Temple of Guilt had received the imperial edict unexpectedly. Neither Xiao Chiye nor Shen Zichuan were wearing their official robes. Everyone gathered in the courtyard and knelt to receive the words of the emperor. The eunuch who had come to deliver it looked unfamiliar. Not daring to put on airs, he began to read out the edict the moment he saw the intended recipient. When he had finished, he bowed slightly and said to Xiao Chiye, "Supreme Commander, please rise." Xiao Chiye took the imperial edict from the eunuch's hands while Chun Yang called for someone to serve tea. "The Temple of Guilt stinks of illness," Xiao Chiye said, "so I won't invite Gong Gong inside for a seat today. The Supreme Commander has been hard at work for days, tending to your duties without rest. If anyone should sit, it's the Supreme Commander." The eunuch merrily took a few sips of tea, then furrowed his brow and sighed. "How is this tea fit for distinguished men, Supreme Commander? Now that His Majesty is awake, the Secretariat Elder says you and the judge may take a rest." "There are people under the rain shelters who are sick. I'm still on duty, no? I wouldn't dare be careless." Xiao Chiye let his features fall into an easy amiability as he acquainted himself with the eunuch over this exchange of pleasantries. Both stood in the courtyard, drinking tea as they chatted and laughed. Xiao Chiye asked, "Did His Majesty wake up today?" "That's right." The eunuch, Fu Man, replied. "Just this morning, the imperial concubines were all weeping tears of joy. The Empress Dowager personally instructed the Court of Imperial Physicians to see to his every need." The contents of this imperial edict were mere formality. It commended the Imperial Army, the Embroidered Uniform Guard, and the Ministry of Revenue for their timely action. Any mention of rewards was vague and brief. Fu Man had only recently assumed office, and he usually served in the Grand Secretariat compound. The officials of the Grand Secretariat held eunuchs in contempt. Hailiang-yi in particular loathed them. Whenever Fu Man had been on duty thus far, he hadn't been permitted to look Hailiang-yi in the eye. He had to retreat to the side and kneel down to reply. Whatever Hailiang-yi asked, he would answer. He didn't dare smile, much less crack a joke. Here, he had not only received a cup of hot tea, he also saw the Supreme Commander Xiao as a naturally carefree man who didn't fuss over trifles. He gradually relaxed as they conversed, intending to use the opportunity to get in Xiao Chiye's good graces. Fu Man shuffled 2 steps over and murmured, "This humble servant has been going around the Grand Secretariat these days serving the Secretariat Elder tea. I've come to hear some rumors about the Supreme Commander." With no change to his expression, Xiao Chiye lifted a hand to motion for the others to step away. He draped an arm around Fu Man's shoulder and said, "Then you must be the Secretariat Elder's new favorite. I also have to keep a weather eye on the skies before I act and watch for an impending storm. Perhaps Gong Gong can give me a pointer or two." "I wouldn't presume to give any pointers," Fu Man hurried to say. "For the sake of the sovereign and his people, the Supreme Commander conscientiously carries out his duties. The Secretariat Elder knows this too. The Grand Secretariat deliberated for several days over the conferment of an award. The Supreme Commander only has to wait. It'll come." Xiao Chiye smiled. "I wouldn't dare take all the credit this time. This crisis wasn't something I could resolve alone. I'd feel uneasy with too great a reward." "Oh my, Supreme Commander!" Fu Man slapped his leg. "You're far too humble. Is Shen Zichuan the officer from the Embroidered Uniform Guard who oversaw this mission?" "That's right," Xiao Chiye said. "A frosty fellow." Fu Man, who had only heard that the two of them were on bad terms, promptly laughed. "Who would have guessed the Supreme Commander would find himself working together with him? Since this business has been successfully handled, he's bound to receive a reward too. But he serves in the Embroidered Uniform Guard, which falls under the authority of the Emperor himself. The Grand Secretariat can't overstep their bounds. His reward will depend on His Majesty." An exception was made for him when he was promoted to Southern Judge before the new year. It's too soon for him to be promoted again, Xiao Chuye replied. The Grand Secretariat didn't object. Fu Man carefully set the teacup aside. He's a thorn in the Supreme Commander's side, so it's natural you would take special note of his actions. But the gentlemen of the Grand Secretariat are all busy with other matters. If His Majesty really does promote Shan Zichuan, no one would dare deny him such a small thing. His Majesty has met with one misfortune after another. Even Secretariat Elder Hai would acquiesce to any of his whims right now. But I'll tell the Supreme Commander something in strict confidence. There is a danger to his speedy promotions. The officials who hold positions of the 5th rank and above in the embroidered uniform guard are all lads from established families. That's Shan Zichuan. His background speaks for itself. Head to the streets now and yell Shen Wei's name at the top of your lungs, and you'll be spat on by everyone in sight. Any promotion will only encourage these noble sons to humiliate him, covertly or overtly. With merits and rewards will come resentment and jealousy. The embroidered uniform guard has always been a massive beast as ferocious as any wolf or tiger. Whether or not he can hold onto his prize will depend on his capabilities. Xiao Chuye exchanged a few more words with Fu Man before summoning Chun Yang. As Chun Yang saw the eunuch out, he gave him a hand up onto his horse. It was only when Fu Man was halfway back that he noticed a heaviness in his sleeve. He fished it out for a look and beamed with delight. Supreme Commander is generous indeed. Fu Man stuffed the money back into his sleeve. A man worth befriending. When Liang Cuishan arrived, he gave Shan Zichuan a clear tally of the herbs and medicines. Shan Zichuan asked him a few questions, and he answered each one readily and thoroughly. It was really a shame for this man to stay a minor, unranked clerk. These last few days have been chaotic, said Shan Zichuan. There are countless apothecaries in Chudu, big and small, and the supply and distribution of medicinal herbs has been a complicated mess. I can see the great effort you've made to record everything so clearly. This is what this humble subordinate does in his official capacity. I've only performed my duty. Liang Cuishan added with sincere concern, Your Excellency looks much better today. A little medicine was all it took. I'm fine now, Shan Zichuan said. Make copies of this ledger and give one to the Ministry of Revenue. You have to report back to your superiors. Give the Imperial Army a copy too, so they know what to expect. At the height of the epidemic, everyone had been on pins and needles. They had set aside old grudges and hatred, but now the rain had stopped, and it was time to weigh the merits and reward of each man. Between the 3 parties involved in this matter, the Imperial Army, the Embroidered Uniform Guard, and the Ministry of Revenue, it was hard to imagine there would be no blaming or backstabbing. As a minor official, Liang Cuishan had seen it all. He understood Shan Zichuan had bad blood with the Imperial Army and had expected to find them at each other's throats. But unexpectedly, Shan Zichuan didn't step forward to claim his accomplishment or speak up about his own efforts. Even with the job completed, he didn't hog the credit for himself. Liang Cuishan hesitated. It was Your Excellency who instructed this humble subordinate to keep these ledgers. For me to hand them over like this, I was sick in bed. You did most of the work on your own. Shan Zichuan closed the book. I can see you're organized and methodical in your work, and you've served in the Ministry of Revenue for so many years. Why are you still just a clerk? This humble subordinate has served in the Ministry of Revenue since the 2nd year of Shende, Liang Cuishan said in a pained voice. At that time, the one in charge was a member of the Hua clan. This humble subordinate is embarrassingly short of money. I don't have the funds to make connections, so all I can do is run errands. The higher-ups only let me attend to the court duties for my original post, and my reviews for the past few years have been in the lower middle range, with neither merits nor demerits. After a moment of silence, Shan Zichuan said, His Majesty is encouraging new opportunities to show one's skills, and the 6 ministries lack talents. There's no need for you to feel disheartened. The chance will present itself in due time. Liang Cuishan had guessed by now that Shan Zichuan meant to recommend him for a position. He swiftly bowed. Your Excellency's recognition and appreciation of this humble subordinate is a kindness I will never forget. Shan Zichuan rose to leave. He said nothing further as he lifted the curtain and stepped out. Liang Cuishan looked at the floor blankly. It took him several seconds to realize tears were streaming down his cheeks. What he hadn't told Shan Zichuan was that he was from Juexi, and his first few decades were spent studying day and night. He passed the imperial examinations at an age several years later than most. He was supposed to assume a post at the Ministry of Personnel, but someone had bribed their way into taking his place. From there, he was transferred to the Ministry of Works, where he received outstanding reviews for the few years he worked there. As he was good with numbers, he was transferred to the Ministry of Revenue, where he initially thought he could showcase his talent. But once there, he found himself under the thumb of a distant descendant of the Hua clan, a disgrace who'd muddled his way to officialdom. Liang Cuishan did the job, but it was this person's name on the reports submitted to the top. He had tried several times to transfer elsewhere, but his superiors, eager to exploit his labor, refused to relinquish him. He was held back again and again until he eventually became a clerk in a position so minor he couldn't even be considered a legitimate official. He had given up dreams of glory in this life, disillusioned with worldly affairs. Who could have expected his misfortune would turn out to be a blessing in disguise? Every cloud indeed had a silver lining. 2 days later, as Xiao Chuye had predicted, the order forbidding access to the palace was lifted. The operations of the 6 ministries returned to normal, and the men of the embroidered uniform guard and imperial army were withdrawn from the Temple of Guilt. Any who had yet to recover were left under the care of the Court of Imperial Physicians. Shan Zichuan was once again neatly turned out as he stood before the door to the Temple of Guilt, dressed in his embroidered python robe and phoenix tail belt, authority token hanging from his waist and sword at his side. Xiao Chuye had tidied up as well, and appeared attired in a scarlet court robe with an embroidered lion mandarin square, tall and long-legged. They put on a great show of bidding each other farewell. "I'm heading this way." Xiao Chuye whistled for Snowcrest and patted his horse's neck. "Is Your Excellency entering the palace with me?" "Please go on ahead, Supreme Commander," Shan Zichuan said politely. "This humble subordinate must report to the Chief Commander." "Being a subordinate sucks." Xiao Chuye swung up a stride. "Don't you want to turn at the top?" "I'm afraid of heights." Shan Zichuan looked up at him. "You'd do better to worry about yourself up there. Things are only going to get more complicated from here. Whether I stay on top depends on whether you're willing to show mercy." Xiao Chuye tapped at his own chest with the horsewhip. "Be gentle." They parted ways before the Temple of Guilt. Instead of going to look for Han Chang immediately, Shan Zichuan directed Xiao Tianya to take the carriage to the house where he had settled Ji Gang and Qi Huilian. The little building was surrounded by a courtyard, with a half-dead pear tree jutting over the top of the wall. Shan Zichuan passed through the courtyard and ascended the steps, only to find the doors to the main hall tightly shut. There was no sign of Ji Gang or Qi Huilian. The back of Xiao Tianya's neck prickled in the odd atmosphere. He could see from the messy footprints on the ground that there had been people here. Palm on the hilt of his blade, he strode forward with a smile. "No one here? If that's so, this humble servant will draw his blade." A sudden gust set the withered branches of the pear tree swaying as the weeds in the courtyard battered the hem of his robe. Xiao Tianya surveyed his surrounds with keen eyes. He had already sensed that both the interior and exterior of the courtyard were teeming with people. Draw a blade? What for? We're all friends here. A weak voice echoed feebly from inside the house. "Lanzhou, why aren't you saying a word?" Shan Zichuan's eyes had already sharpened ruthlessly, yet he forced a laugh. "Second young master, have you recovered?" "Would I dare come see you if I hadn't? My good brother, why didn't you tell me you were hiding such a big wig here?" Shan Zichuan laughed out loud and motioned for Qiao Tianya to step back. He shoved the door open, stirring up the dust inside. An entire room of guards turned to look at him, their drawn blades glinting with snowy white light. Xi Hongxuan sat in the middle of it all, wrapped in fox fur with a teacup in hand. He had lost quite a bit of weight and didn't look well at all. Showing no signs of fear, Shan Zichuan strolled in. One is a fool and the other a lunatic. What kind of bigwig could he be? If you wanted them, why didn't you just tell me? Xi Hongxuan couldn't bring himself to laugh. He said gloomily, If Qi Huilian is no bigwig, then Hai Liangyi is common as dirt. Lanzhou, oh Lanzhou, you've hidden this all too well. To think the grand mentor of Yongyi taught you personally. Is he banking on you becoming emperor? He's already crazy. Shan Zichuan pulled out his handkerchief, fastidiously wiping dust from his hands. He cast a glance at Xi Hongxuan. You afraid of a madman? I am. Xi Hongxuan flung the teacup down. A madman taught a rabid dog whose bites caught me off guard and turned me into a bloody pulp. Blades pressed in swiftly from all sides. Shan Zichuan smiled. You're not speaking sense. If you wish to kill me, at least let me die knowing why. Did you, Xi Hongxuan said, voice dripping with hostility, team up with Xiao'er to screw me over? The room seemed to hold its breath. Shadows fell along Shan Zichuan's face. After a moment of silence, he flashed a smile and leaned against the edge of the table. That's right. Shan Zichuan scrutinized Xi Hongxuan with a wicked darkness in his eyes as he continued contemptuously. If I dare to say that, would you dare believe it? Chapter 71. Trap. It was so quiet one could hear a pin drop. Hands braced on the chair's armrests, Xi Hongxuan's next words cracked through the heart-stopping tension. Obscuring truth with falsehood. You're setting traps again. Shan Lanzhou, do you think I won't kill you? The blade is already at my neck. Shan Zichuan turned to look askance at one of the blades in question. You can give the command to take my head at any time. Xi Hongxuan didn't dare relax even a little. In this confrontation, he wasn't willing to miss the subtlest shift in Shan Zichuan's expression. Although he was sitting steady in the chair, deep down, he was more anxious than Shan Zichuan. Yet the more he warned himself against being influenced by him, the more he was taken in by the man's careful expression and tone. For what it's worth, we were brothers, Xi Hongxuan said with an insincere smile. Lanzhou, tell me the truth, and I'll leave you in one piece. All talk. Kill me then, Shan Zichuan goaded him. Come on. Xi Hongxuan's fingers dug tightly into the armrests as he stared down at Shan Zichuan, who was far too calm and composed. Aren't you worried about Qi Huilian? Once you're dead, I'll skin that old dog and sell him to the Empress Dowager as a bid for leniency. If you'd handed her Qi Huilian 20 years ago, she might have pardoned your negligence, said Shan Zichuan. Today he's worth nothing alive and even less dead. You're a veteran merchant. Would you really accept a losing deal like this? I think you've lost your mind, too. That fever must have addled your brain. Qi Huilian is feigning insanity, Xi Hongxuan said. You think I can't tell? He's at death's door, yet he's tucking his tail between his legs and struggling on. To survive, he's put on quite the convincing act. Shan Zichuan sneered. Oh, please. What do you expect me to say? He's just a lunatic. If he's a lunatic, whom are you studying under? The tendons in Xi Hongxuan's neck strained as he leaned forward. The Temple of Guilt transformed you into a new man. How did the last remnant of the Shun clan who resembled a lapdog 6 years ago become so fearless and resourceful, huh? Lanzhou, you tell me. Man proposes, heaven disposes. Shan Zichuan's expression was grim. You know what it's like being a lapdog at the beck and call of others, to be kicked around. If I don't shed my skin, how can I break free of my past and make it out there? I'd rather rely on myself than others. Look at us. You and I are both fleeing perilous circumstances, yet now even we are at odds. Xi Hongxuan, you're so eager to rid yourself of someone as soon as he's outlived his usefulness, like killing the donkey the moment it leaves the millstone. If you hadn't leaked my secrets, why did Ohua Pavilion collapse? We called ourselves brothers inside those walls, but the moment you step out, you stab me in the back. Of the two of us, who's more ruthless? Xi Hongxuan asked in a chilling voice. But as fate would have it, I didn't die. You want to play both sides, but there's no such thing as having your cake and eating it too. What can Xiao'er give me that's worth this level of suspicion? Shen Zichuan asked sarcastically. He's not Xiao Jiming. He can neither become the Prince of Libei nor command their armored cavalry. He's a trapped beast in Chidu. What's the difference between him and me? Whatever it is he has, I don't lack it. He has a good life that you don't, says Xi Hongxuan. He's the second son of the Prince of Libei, a legitimate and lawful heir, born to the same mother who birthed Xiao Jiming. Even if he can't inherit his father's title, he has tens of thousands of willing troops at his disposal. Aren't soldiers precisely what you lack? Indifferent, Shen Zichuan answered. I hold a post in the embroidered uniform guard. What do I need an army for? I can only survive within Chudu. There's nowhere else I can put my abilities to use. I'm the 8th common son of Shenwei, while you are the 2nd lawful son of the Xi clan. Yet have either of us had a life of ease? There's no difference between lawful and common sons. When it comes to humans, even heaven can't reach a verdict until the end. Such treacherous words. You regard the social order of this world as nothing. Xi Hongxuan pointed to his feet. But you have to admit, some people are born to be masters. The succession, generation after generation, of the noble clans sustains that. This is fate. If there is no difference between those of common and lawful birth, how can a bloodline maintain its legitimacy? A Li is fundamentally a cut above a Shen. Shen Zichuan stared at Xi Hongxuan and broke into laughter. Insanity stirred in those expressive eyes as he said, That's right. That's right. For a split second, Qiao Tianya saw Shen Zichuan's murderous intent. He thought Shen Zichuan would draw his blade. He didn't expect him to continue in a genial tone. Well, if that's the case, then what future could I have following Xiao'er? You believe the rumors and laid a trap to kill me today, but you will surely regret it in the future. Xi Hongxuan faltered, besieged by doubts, but his expression remained stony. He merely lowered his eyes. Even when faced with imminent death, you're a consummate actor. You came straight here from the Temple of Guilt. Isn't that proof enough that this place is important to you? Of course. Shen Zichuan's emotions seemed to have sunk into deep waters. Not even a ripple could be seen. This is Qi Huilian we're talking about. He's crazy now, but he's still the Qi Huilian who was the top scholar in all 3 levels of the imperial examinations, a man personally sought out by the crown prince of the Eastern Palace. Now that he's fallen into my hands, I won't hand him over to anyone else while he lives. Shen Zichuan was right. Xi Hongxuan was bluffing. He had no idea if Qi Huilian was genuinely insane or simply putting on an act. He merely wanted to catch Shen Zichuan off guard. Perhaps Xi Hongxuan wasn't as capable as Xue Xiuzhou, but he possessed one unsurpassed ability, and that was eloquence. He could incite the Imperial College to rise in rebellion with a single tea-house meeting, all thanks to his silver tongue. Yet this also happened to be his fatal flaw. If he were certain beyond a shadow of a doubt that Shen Zichuan and Xiao Chiye were setting him up for a fall, he wouldn't have given Shen Zichuan the chance to open his mouth. He dragged his sickly body all the way here because he couldn't be sure. Xi Hongxuan had to put his skills to use in a battle of words, hoping to trick Shen Zichuan into telling the truth. What do you want Qi Huilian for? Xi Hongxuan asked warily. Shen Zichuan was suddenly struck with an idea. He bent over and said to Xi Hongxuan, Qi Huilian was the crown prince's teacher. After the incident at the Eastern Palace, I heard there remained an imperial grandson, still an infant. Jilei didn't reveal the child's whereabouts to me before his death. I thought Qi Huilian might know, so I've kept close watch on him." A change came over Shi Hongxuan's countenance in spite of himself. The Empress Dowager would never leave survivors. It's common practice to stamp out trouble at its source. What are you daydreaming about? If there's no imperial heir in the wings, who would conspire to murder His Majesty? Shen Zhichuan said. If he dies, there's nobody else surnamed Li in all the Zhou Empire. I've been thinking about this since... Oh my gosh, okay. You didn't do it, and neither did I. Instead of falling out with me, why not lay down your sword and discuss countermeasures? Shi Hongxuan didn't move. How do I know it wasn't you? Say for myself. No one is more familiar with the structure of Ohua Pavilion. If anyone could tamper with it, it's you. Look how I encounter calamities one after another, yet you get promoted again and again. The list of your meritorious deeds is growing by the day. I've only just attracted His Majesty's favor. Now is the time for me to accumulate merits and climb my way up. Why on earth would I want him dead? Not to mention, you and I have been conspiring together for quite some time. What makes you think Xiao'er would trust me based on some empty promises? Shen Zhichuan's lips curved in a smile. If I were to kill you, it would be at a time when there's much more in it for me. He spoke half in jest, but at these words, the blood of those listening ran cold. Shi Hongxuan covered his mouth and coughed, using the motion to evade Shen Zhichuan's gaze. They had conspired to kill many people by this point, yet Shi Hongxuan still didn't have the courage to face Shen Zhichuan head-on. This wasn't a momentary fear, but one accumulated over the course of their acquaintance. He could never forget the way Jilei looked, flayed alive. It was the same fear that spurred him to act quickly once his suspicions were roused. Shi Hongxuan thought, "This man cannot live." When the time came, he had to kill him, no matter what. Such a man would certainly not let himself be used for Shi Hongxuan's own purposes. His talk of there being no difference between lawful and common birth already revealed his lack of proper reverence for the 8 great clans. Both of them were attempting the dangerous feat of bargaining with a tiger for its hide. It was only a matter of who would act faster in the days to come. Shi Hongxuan had made up his mind. He smiled back. "I'm scaring you only because I was so scared after being crushed in the pit. Lanzhou, you'd understand if you had been the one lying there. What are you all waiting for? Sheath your blades. Don't hurt the judge." The surrounding blades were turned to their sheaths, one by one. Shi Hongxuan didn't tell his men to retreat from the room. Pulling his fox fur closer, he said, "Everything happened too quickly these last few days. We've had no communication. It's inevitable we would come to suspect one another. Everything is back in order now that we've cleared the air. Come, Lanzhou, take a seat and we'll talk." "A naked blade can't distinguish friend from foe," replied Shen Zhichuan. "Second young master, next time, give me some warning so I'll be prepared to receive you." "You're remarkably composed in the face of danger." Shi Hongxuan lifted the teapot to brew the tea. "As you know, what we're doing could cost us our heads. I really was forced into a corner this time. Otherwise, how could I have treated you so? I had no choice, I tell you. I got too anxious thinking how Xiao'er will be happily riding the crest of success after this. Come, sit. Don't tell me you hold it against me. I, a man with the surname Shen, am unworthy of such courtesy." Shen Zhichuan's eyes swept over the room. "How would I dare sit by your side?" Shi Hongxuan guffawed. "That was all bullshit. Words spoken to disparage others. How can you be the same as them? Take a seat." Only then did Shen Zhichuan sit down. Shi Hongxuan held out the tea and said with an apologetic smile, "If you ask me, that surname Shen is really holding you back. Don't you think so? Had you been born in the Han clan or Fei clan, there wouldn't be this animosity between us. Lanzhou, don't be upset. Now, tell me seriously, what are you keeping Qi Huilian for?" Shen Zhichuan touched his sleeve pocket before he remembered his ivory fan was lost. The old loon was scared stiff when the crown prince slit his throat. When I was in the Temple of Guilt, I ran into him all the time and heard his ravings. I thought I'd keep him in case of future need. You should have asked me about the imperial grandson. Shi Hongxuan brushed aside tea foam in his cup. Forget about it. It's impossible. No chance at all. Shan Zichuan turned the teacup gently in his hands. He didn't drink. Shi Hongxuan drank the tea and grunted twice. Ji Lei and Shen Wei carried out that task. They were ruthless. Even the fair and beautiful crown princess was strangled to death. And you've pinned your hopes on them having shown an imperial grandson mercy? After killing his father, they would have become sworn enemies of the child. You think they'd willingly sow seeds of future disaster for themselves? Is that what Xue Xiuzhou said? Shi Hongxuan cast him a glance. Why are you bringing up Yanqiang now? An old friend, is he not? Shan Zichuan's gaze never faltered. It appears you know each other well. Weren't you promoted to the Bureau of Evaluations this time precisely because you listened to his advice? Both of you are master strategists. I listen to whoever makes more sense, Shi Hongxuan replied. They say scholars hold one another in low regard. Why are you smart people always belittling each other? That's not it, said Shan Zichuan. You were transferred into the Bureau of Evaluations, and subsequently, this sought-after review assignment fell to you. That would make anyone's eyes green with envy. It's hard to say this wasn't the reason you were set up. Xue Xiuzhou has been an official for some years, yet he never thought of this possibility. Why did he persuade you to go? Shi Hongxuan lowered his cup. Even if that's the reason, who would have expected someone to strike out at me because of it? Yanqiang's not at fault. He rendered meritorious service by protecting the emperor at the Nanlin hunting grounds, yet he knew to conceal his abilities and bide his time. Instead of angling for a top position back then, he went to the Court of Judicial Review to gain experience. Shan Zichuan smiled at Shi Hongxuan and let the matter drop. I just find it strange. Oh my. Shi Hongxuan smiled and said as if he hadn't heard him. This interruption almost made me forget. Lanzhou, now that I've recovered and His Majesty has awoken, the Chief Surveillance Bureau will certainly impeach me. Help me think of a way out of it. I can't be transferred away from Chengdu. The fault lies with His Majesty, but no one will blame him. Both the Ministry of Works and Ministry of Revenue are already shirking responsibility. You've happened to land right in the middle, so you're a natural target. Shan Zichuan set his teacup aside. This will be tough to wiggle out of. Pan Xiangjie and Wei Huaigu. At the end of the day, what they really want is money. A formal rebuke isn't a big deal. They're only targeting me because they want to take advantage of the situation to make me cough up the funds to cover the hole this will leave in the budget myself. How many died this time? As long as His Majesty is unharmed, everything else can be bought. Without tens of thousands of taels, I'm afraid it'll be hard to settle this. Shan Zichuan replied with a smile. I have the money. Shi Hongxuan set his teacup down too. But I'm not willing to give it to them. I'm at fault for accompanying His Majesty to the brothel, but the public ditches are no business of mine. If they plan on using me as a scapegoat and slapping unreasonable demands on me, I won't be so obliging. An official even one rank higher can oppose an official beneath him. Shan Zichuan spoke calmly. You aren't in the wrong, but it will still become your fault. You can't reason with them, and you can't shift the blame. It's certainly a dilemma. It's not. I'm telling you, the Emperor's heart is with me, Shi Hongxuan said. Even if they want to punish me severely, they still have to wait for the Emperor's word. We mustn't lose our heads before Xiaowar is dealt with. Trust me, when His Majesty wakes up, he'll be a changed man. Chapter 72. Noble Title. He spoke with such certainty that Shan Zichuan cast him a sidelong glance. But Shi Hongxuan didn't elaborate. You don't have a proper residence now, so it'll be inconvenient to keep Qi Huilian around. Why not leave him with me? It's hardly appropriate to leave a raving lunatic at your place either, Shan Zichuan said evenly. What do you want him for? If you ask me, said Shi Hongxuan, holding his hand flat to a blade, it'd be best to finish him off. You don't want to get yourself involved in all those old affairs. The more you know, the worse off you'll be. Shi Hongxuan brandished his hand and looked at Shan Zichuan. Or are you unwilling? Of course I'm unwilling, Shan Zichuan said. He's an old minister from the reign of Yongyi. He knew Shen Wei well. I have use for him alive. Had Shan Zichuan readily agreed, Shi Hongxuan wouldn't have believed him. He spoke with 7 parts truth and 3 parts falsehood to throw Shi Hongxuan off. As expected, Shi Hongxuan made no further mention of killing him. Are you still thinking of investigating Shen Wei's case? You should have said so earlier. Nanzhou, do you have to go so far as to hide such a small matter from me? When did I hide it? Shan Zichuan smiled and lifted the teapot and poured for Shi Hongxuan. Isn't it obvious? As long as Shen Wei is guilty, I'll never be able to hold my head high. The evidence against him is conclusive, and his infamy has spread far and wide. Even if some extenuating evidence comes to light, it won't be enough to change the minds of the masses, Shi Hongxuan said. A treasonous act like betraying your country for personal glory can never be scrubbed clean, even over several lifetimes. Besides, relying on an imperial pardon is pointless. Rumors take on a life of their own. Shen Wei has already been crucified under the ocean of spittle. I pity you, of course I do. But I can only advise you to forget about this matter. There's nothing you can do to clear Shen Wei's name. Shan Zichuan set down the teapot in silence. Sensing the heaviness of the atmosphere, Shi Hongxuan continued, You're already an embroidered uniform guard of the 5th rank, and you still take that slander to heart? No. You must look ahead. You've acquitted yourself well this time, so you can look forward to a promotion, yes? Nothing is confirmed, Shan Zichuan said. I've barely settled in my post as Southern Judge. Charging to the top isn't necessarily a good thing. Right. We must act carefully. We've gambled with our lives here. Shi Hongxuan tucked the fox fur about him. Our first priority should be investigating this case with Old Hua Pavilion. Our enemy is hiding in the dark, while we are exposed in the open. If we can't get to the bottom of this, it will be hard to guard against them in the future. This time, I'm the one who got crushed. But what about next time? You should watch your back. I can't stay much longer today. Lanzhou, I'll see you at my residence in a few days. He rose to his feet and surveyed his surroundings again. This courtyard seems decent enough. If you need money, just ask. Don't take what happened today to heart, all right? Shi Hongxuan smiled. Shan Zichuan smiled too, as if there was no ill will between them. As if what happened earlier was merely a harmless joke, and now the pair of them were reconciled. Qiao Tianya saw Shi Hongxuan off. When he returned to the courtyard, he spied Shan Zichuan standing with his back to him, facing the main hall. He was wiping his hands with a handkerchief. The setting sun reached into the courtyard to cast its scarlet hue over Shan Zichuan's embroidered python robe. His bowed neck was fair as jade. He wiped those slender, flawless fingers. They were quite clearly clean, yet he seemed to detest them to bits. Shan Zichuan turned his head slightly. Is he gone? I saw him get into the carriage. Qiao Tianya stopped a short distance from Shan Zichuan. He didn't move forward, but bent to pick a trampled leaf off the ground and scrutinized it. The men he hired are martial masters from all over the empire, yet there's no sign that a fight broke out. Jigang Shifu must have been on his guard, and the Grand Mentor didn't resist. Shifu burned his face to conceal his identity and live in hiding. He's too wise to start a fight at a moment like this. Shan Zichuan folded that blue handkerchief neatly. Xianzheng cannot remain in Shi Hongxuan's hands too long. We need to think of something. Qiao Tianya crushed the leaf as Shan Zichuan contemplated. When Shan Zichuan suddenly turned, he was dazzled by the sunset's glow. He neither flinched nor hid from it, looking toward the towering imperial palace at the distance. Legitimate bloodline, Shan Zichuan murmured. He asked Qiao Tianya, Who lives there? Qiao Tianya followed the line of his gaze. The Li clan. Wrong. Shan Zichuan's eyes were cold and indifferent as he said with a mocking smile, It's a deer, a prize for the taking. If Zhou were to lose its deer, all the heroes of the world might pursue it. Today, You say it's the Li clan. Tomorrow, I say it's a cabbage seller on the street. Whoever manages to sit atop the dragon throne is the rightful ruler. Qiao Tianya prided himself on being a rebellious nonconformist, but not even he expected Shen Zichuan had the audacity to voice such a sentiment. Astonished, he took a few steps back and looked out again at the palace, musing. Seditious words like these are tantamount to treason. Do you know, there are countless gentlemen in this world, good men who are steadfast and loyal. Shen Zichuan slipped the handkerchief back into his sleeve. The Earl of Biansha, Lu Pingyan, is known as the vicious beast of the border town. He has spent his entire family fortune to defend the Bianjuan commandery. Although conferred a noble title by the emperor, all he eats are pickled vegetables and taro. As for Lu Guangbai, because he isn't on good terms with the 8 great clans, he's hard-pressed to fill his soldiers' bellies when war breaks out, and he's never been bestowed a noble title despite all those illustrious military achievements. So tell me, is it satisfying to be such a loyal official and honorable gentleman? Before we talk about satisfaction, ask your conscience, Qiao Tianya replied. To be an outspoken and candid minister, you must sacrifice the self and give up your personal desires for the greater good. Look at Feng Yisheng of Suotian Pass. His entire family died martyrs in battle. Loyal heroes all. This is what we call the epitome of righteousness. The madness Shen Zichuan had suppressed earlier swept over him again. He burst into laughter. Qiao Tianya, you're not at all the free spirit you make yourself out to be. You're a prisoner to the norms. It's men like you who can truly become gentlemen. Master, the last glimmer of sun on the horizon disappeared, and darkness shrouded the courtyard. The pear tree bared its withered branches, casting long shadows over Shen Zichuan's upturned face. In this world, someone has to be the traitor. I don't believe fate is determined by the heavens. If the blade's against my throat, I'd show no mercy even if it was Li Jianheng holding it, let alone Xi Hongxuan. The bloodline legitimacy Xi Hongxuan speaks of is the baseless ravings of a fool. Anyone will die when a sword slashes their neck, whether one is a lawful son born to the legitimate wife or a common-born son to a concubine. There's no exception. In the cold and dreary dusk, a lone crow screeched mournfully. Shen Zichuan looked back at Qiao Tianya. My ambition is not to be a gentleman, nor a good person. Since vindictiveness has become the tenet I live by, then a kindness given is kindness given, and a wrong done is a wrong done. Xi Hongxuan will pay with his life for what happened today. The wind scuttled the clouds away above them, scraping the last remaining leaves off the tips of the branches. The impeachments from the Chief Surveillance Bureau came down in a deluge. Xi Hongxuan, Pan Xiangjie, Wei Huaixiang, even Hai Liangyi were censured one after the other. Cun Yu took charge as principal commentator as the various parties mauled one another on the floor of the imperial court. Li Jianheng, who had just left his sickbed, hardly spoke and simply let them argue among themselves as he held court in Mingli Hall. Hai Liangyi had been ill before this latest crisis, and lately looked to be in increasingly poor health. He'd had not a moment to rest, and now he couldn't help but let a few sharp coughs escape as he listened to the Ministry of Works and the Ministry of Revenue arguing again. Secretariat Elder, Li Jianheng hurried to say, there's no need to rise. If you have something to add, you may say it while seated. Hai Liangyi bowed his thanks and covered his mouth with a handkerchief. When his coughing eased, he said, The Grand Secretariat has already laid our recommendations for rewards and punishments on His Majesty's desk yesterday. If Your Majesty finds any part inappropriate after reviewing it, you may reject it and the Grand Secretariat will discuss again. Li Jianheng had never been diligent in these things. Hai Liangyi assumed he would hem and haw. He didn't expect him to say after a moment's pause, We've seen it. There are indeed some parts we would like to ask the Secretariat Elder to further clarify. The entire hall of officials stood dumbfounded as those words left his mouth. Li Jianheng opened the memorial. The Imperial Guard has done well in dredging the public ditches. Xiao Chuye is already a second-rank Supreme Commander of the Imperial Army. A reward of gold and jade is simply too meager. The military drill grounds on Mount Fang are undergoing expansion this year, and the money for it will be arranged by the Ministry of Revenue. Ha Liangyi answered. They've essentially waived his biggest expenditure this year. This humble subject feels the reward should not be overly excessive. This is sufficient. But managing the distribution of medicinal herbs, the quarantine of patients, and the dredging of the public ditches is no small matter, said Li Jianheng. He has handled all of them admirably. Hai Liangyi pondered. It's true he has rendered meritorious service, but these deeds were not something the Imperial Army achieved on its own. If he's shown too much special favor, we would like to advance his noble rank. Li Jianheng closed the memorial and looked at Hai Liangyi. He's the second son of lawful birth to the Prince of Libei. Had he gone into battle and slain our enemies, he would hold a noble rank and title by now. Hai Liangyi didn't answer immediately. We were thinking about this in the days we were confined to our sickbed, Li Jianheng said. We wish to confer the title of Marquis of Dingdu. Sorry. Stabilizing the capital upon Xiao Chuye. What does the Secretariat Elder think? You mustn't, Your Majesty, Hai Liangyi said. Without military achievements, one cannot be conferred a noble title. Xiao Chuye has made great contributions this time, certainly, but not to the point that he can be made a marquis. The Lu clan of Qidong's Bianjuan commandery has numerous military achievements to their name, yet only old General Lu Pingyan currently holds a title as the Earl of Biansha, one rank lower than a marquis. Xiao Chuye has not stabilized the borders, and he has not driven out any enemies. I fear it will be difficult to justify to the public why Your Majesty has made him a marquis out of the blue. To begin with, he rendered meritorious service protecting us at the Nanling hunting grounds, and now he has, yet again, shown no fear in the face of danger. Containing the pox is a public good. This matter concerns the peace and stability of Chidu. Is this not considered a merit? Meanwhile, the Earl of Biansha, Lu Pingyan, has deployed the garrison troops of Bianjuan Commandery without permission on numerous occasions. His noble rank hasn't advanced because his merits and demerits offset each other. Li Jianheng's eyes reddened as he spoke. He covered his face, voice thick with emotion. Are you saying our life is worth nothing? Our intent in bestowing the title of Marquis on Xiao Chuye is to commend him. There will be no increase in the number of soldiers in the Imperial Army, nor any establishment of private rights. It's merely a title. Is this not acceptable either? Come on, sir, you better speak. Give your opinion. Wei Huaigu had initially planned to impeach Xiao Chuye for distributing medicine without authorization, but seeing which way the wind was blowing, he changed tack. Your Majesty's proposal is reasonable. Xiao Chuye's decisive and fearless action in times of danger is to be commended, but the Secretariat Elder makes a compelling point too. If this humble subject may make a suggestion, why not honor Xiao Chuye with the title of Earl first? No. Hai Liangyi wouldn't budge. The idea is nonsensical. Your Majesty, if you grant Xiao Chuye a title today, then you'll greatly disappoint the old general at the frontier. This is an established rule of the Imperial Court. A noble title cannot be conferred without military achievements. Why not first elevate Lu Pingyan to Marquis, then confer the title of Earl upon Xiao Chuye? Li Jianheng said. Does the Secretariat Elder still object? He spoke of conferment as if titles were a child's toys, to be swapped at will. Hai Liangyi's coughing intensified. He wanted to say more, but Pan Xiangjie beat him to it, speaking in a rush. This humble subject thinks it's a good idea. This would be Your Majesty's first conferment since your ascension. It's a special honor. Secretariat Elder, one mustn't be a stickler for convention on every particular. Xiao Chuye has made a contribution. What's wrong with making an exemption? Upon seeing the noble clans begin to band together in urging Li Jianheng, Kong Qiu sank down in a kowtow. This humble subject thinks the Secretariat Elder has the right of it. Your Majesty, Lu Pingyan has spared no effort to defend the Bianjuan commandery. Even if he has conferred a new title, It shouldn't be decided in such a hasty and sloppy... Hasty? We've painstakingly asked the opinions of everyone in attendance, yet you say we're being hasty. Flinging his sleeves, Li Tianheng rose to his feet and pointed at Kong Qiu. We can see you're never out of step with the Secretariat Elder, the sovereign and his ministers. Exactly who is your sovereign, and whose minister are you? The entire court of ministers knelt and chorused. Your Majesty, please be appeased. Kong Qiu immediately said, Your Majesty is this humble subject's sovereign, and this humble subject does His Majesty's bidding. Nevertheless, it is inappropriate to bypass convention and press ahead with this conferment. We will confer the title upon him, Li Jianheng wept. Time and time again we've met with calamity, and it's only with Ce'an's help that we averted disaster and escaped unscathed. And now we want to bestow a title upon him. You people obstruct us at every turn. If the Secretariat Elder has final say over all matters of this imperial court, perhaps the Secretariat Elder should sit on the throne instead. These words struck Hailiang Yi like a knife to the heart. Unsteady on his knees, Hailiang Yi covered his mouth and coughed violently. This man had never met with officials outside the court and capital, and had never held any private feasts. He worked tirelessly day and night just to avoid being drawn into any faction or clique. And he taught and guided Li Jianheng with utmost care. Also, no one could find fault with his conduct even behind his back. He was the most trustworthy minister, the right-hand man of the emperor, not some tyrannical official lusting for power. Watching Hailiang Yi cough, doubled over where he knelt, Li Jianheng didn't dare create more of a scene. He called someone to help Hailiang Yi up, yet he still said, No matter what, Xiao Chuye shall be conferred a title. The imperial edict was issued a few days after the commotion in Mingli Hall. Almost instantly, a wave of memorials flooded in from all over. Lu Guangbai brought his father out to receive the imperial edict at the Bianjuan commandery. Lu Pingyan was promoted to the rank of marquis. Even he was at a loss as to how to react as he held the edict in his hands. The Lu clan had buried generations of its people in their yellow sand. In his heyday, Lu Pingyan had been known as the vicious beast of the border town. He was renowned for his military exploits, his name spoken alongside those of Xiao Fengshu and Qi Shiyu. Now, injured and growing frail, though before he retired from active duty to take up an advisory post, he finally received his reward. Yet this honor was granted merely to pave the way for a junior of the younger generation. Xiao Chuye was asleep in his residence when he got word of the arrival of the imperial edict. He dressed at once and came out to kneel. After reading the emperor's words aloud, Fu Man beamed and moved to help him up to receive it, only to find a pale-faced Xiao Chuye who looked as if he had no intention of doing any such thing. This title mustn't be accepted. Yeah, I didn't think he'd be happy about it either. What Hailiang Yi had said was true, and Xiao Chuye knew it. Though he had rendered meritorious service protecting the emperor at the Nanling hunting grounds and played a critical role in the latest crisis with the ditches, his contributions were nothing compared to the hard-won military merits earned from battling with sharpened steel at the frontiers. And who was Lu Pingyan? None other than the general his old man, Xiao Fengshu, regarded as his own brother. Now that they had humiliated Lu Pingyan to confer a title on Xiao Chuye, how could Xiao Chuye hold his head up among the various garrison troops of the frontiers? How could he command any respect among his men? And most crucially, what would the Lu clan think? How could Xiao and Lu still be brothers? Ding Du. Ding Du. Stabilizing the capital. He would be more than stable. This title was clearly meant to nail him down here in Chudu. Did Li Jianheng's bout of illness fucking scramble his brain? Rage bubbled up in Xiao Chuye, worsened by his interrupted sleep. He tugged at the official's robe he'd hastily thrown on and squashed down his fury to say expressionlessly, Go and report back to His Majesty that Xiao Ce'an is unworthy of this title. He doesn't dare accept this overwhelming favor from His Majesty, nor this heaven-sent noble rank. Chapter 73. Conferment. Xiao Chuye didn't dare accept the imperial edict, and Fu Man didn't dare persuade him further. He hurried back to the palace to make his report. After hearing the whole story, Li Jianheng leapt to his feet. Are the orders of the Son of Heaven something he can reject as he pleases? When we reward him, he should kneel and accept it. Go back. Cursing his fate, Fu Man climbed onto the horse again and returned to Xiao Chuye's residence. Finding Xiao Chuye still kneeling, he held out the imperial edict again and bowed. Supreme Commander, why do this? Isn't this what we crawled through the ditches for? I don't want this noble rank, Xiao Chuye said with a hint of displeasure. Don't waste your breath on me. Fu Man stamped his foot in anxiety, but he couldn't accept the edict on behalf of Xiao Chuye. All he could do was play for time. When word of Xiao Chuye's reply was brought back to the palace, Li Jianheng flew into a rage. Let him kneel then. In order to reward him, we rebuffed even the Secretariat Elder, and he still puts on airs? Let him kneel, we say. Thus, the sovereign and his minister, one within the palace walls and the other without, remained in a deadlock. The ground was icy in the first 3 months of the year. Xiao Chuye knelt with a straight back, determined to see Li Jianheng revoke his order. Perhaps he could have accepted the edict, then handled the matter in a more diplomatic fashion, but he wasn't willing. The Lu clan of Qidong was held in check by the Qi clan at the top and invaded by Biansha at the bottom. They weren't in the same leagues as the Qi and Xiao clans. In slighting Lu Pingyan, Li Jianheng had picked the easy target. The food and clothing expenditures of those 20,000 troops of the Bianjuan commandery were all in the imperial court's control. They had no military fields. If they had, the Lu clan wouldn't be forced to stoop so low demanding payment every year, or be so poor that they sold their family lands and heirlooms. When Lu Guangbai entered the capital to make his annual reports, had he ever been taken seriously? Yet which mid-rank official in the capital would normally dare dismiss a general of the empire? They all took their cues from above. In the Xiande Emperor's day, it was rare for Lu Guangbai to successfully seek an audience with the emperor. This was more than a simple matter of being liked or disliked. It was about the balance of military power in the empire. The Xiao and Qi were both great generals stationed at the frontiers. Yet why did the Hua clan guard against the Prince of Libei so rigorously and go to such lengths to trap Xiao Chuye and Shudu? The Xiao clan was the dominant force in the Libei Great Commandery. There was no leash in the entire territory that could bring them to heel, and thus Chudu could only turn Xiao Chuye into the collar that restrained the Libei armored cavalry. Qidong, on the other hand, had two equally celebrated generals, Qi Shiyu and Lu Pingyan. So why was Qi Shiyu eventually the one conferred the title of Grand Marshal of Qidong's 5 commanderies? Because Lu Pingyan and Xiao Fangshu were on close terms, and on top of that, were connected through the marriage of their children. The Lu clan was the chess piece that served to balance the power between the 3 parties. Their position in the Bianjuan commandery was crucial, a heavy responsibility entrusted to them by the imperial court. Even so, the court was in no hurry to bestow titles and ranks upon them. With both the Qi clan and the imperial court keeping them in check, the Lu clan could only ever be a weapon used to fight foreign enemies. So long as they never became high-ranking military officials of the frontier, they would never become a second Prince of Libei. As it stood, although Lu Guangbai was the commanding general in charge of the Bianjuan commandery's defenses, he could make no move on his own. He had to consult Tang Jiu Qing for any mobilization of troops and consult the Ministry of War and Ministry of Revenue in Chudu for any disbursement of money. If Tang Jiu Qing hadn't been generous in granting him the prerogative to deploy troops on his orders in times of peril, he would be in an even greater predicament than he currently was. Now Li Jianheng had elevated Lu Pingyan's noble rank, yet it was a promotion in name only, with no accompanying rewards or authority. The Lu clan would remain starving cattle working to their deaths at the Bianjuan commandery. Their reputation had gone up a notch on the surface, but it was an insult at the root. Half the Lu clan's current difficulties were related to the Xiao clan. Xiao Zhiye could not, must not, accept the edict without protest. If the imperial edict had been issued, then the Grand Secretariat had given the nod. In that case, there was no reason for the Son of Heaven to revoke his order, yet Xiao Zhiye could not meet it with great delight. Whether he had to kowtow, lash out, or even throw a tantrum, he had to show the Lu clan his personal stance. It was by virtue of power and might that Li Jianheng would trample the Lu clan into the mud. The imperial court had the Lu clan in their grasp. In contrast, it was by virtue of friendship that the Xiao clan didn't dare do the same. Both families had always regarded the other as a brother. If this friendship foundered, the Xiao clan would lose their assistive force in the southeast. Xiao Zhiye knelt until dark. Fu Man didn't dare sit. He stood at the side with the imperial edict in his hands. Eventually, they heard the sound of hurried footsteps from the entrance. A eunuch called urgently, "Supreme Commander, you may stop kneeling. Please get up. His Majesty summons you for an audience." Xiao Zhiye lifted the hem of his robe and rose without demur, then swung astride his horse to make for the palace. Fu Man scrambled onto his horse to follow. Xiao Zhiye showed no signs of exhaustion, so he didn't dare complain either. When they arrived, Mingli Hall was brightly lit. Li Jianheng sat on the dragon throne as someone announced Xiao Zhiye's arrival, but he didn't summon him in. He remained seated, tracing characters at his desk. Without a summons, Xiao Zhiye could not enter. He knelt in the dark outside Mingli Hall. It was late, and the cold water that remained on the freshly scrubbed floor dampened his robe. The entire courtyard of eunuchs moved in silence, none daring to make a sound. Li Jianheng stared blankly at the glazed lamp on his desk, sunk in thought in this silent night. By the time he returned to his senses, it was past midnight. He blinked for a moment, then suddenly rose to his feet and walked out. The palace maids withdrew, and the eunuchs knelt where they were. Treading over their shadows, Li Jianheng crossed the floor. Xiao Zhiye didn't lift his head. Li Jianheng looked down. In the past, he had always looked up at Xiao Zhiye. When they had run about on the streets together, he had considered Xiao Zhiye a big brother. Xiao Zhiye, too, had called him brother. They had been as thick as thieves and together made every kind of mischief. Li Jianheng thought he had treated Xiao Zhiye with utmost sincerity. How had they come to this? Li Jianheng was dressed in the emperor's vibrant yellow, a round-necked robe with narrow sleeves. He dug his thumbs into the amber belt at his waist as he moved to Xiao Zhiye's side and looked up at the luminous moon hanging over the unswept palace eaves. He weighed his words for a moment, then said, "There's no one else here. Let's talk." The cold moonlight cast its pale light over them, adding to the chill of the wind. "Aren't you usually bold and carefree?" asked Li Jianheng. "To think, giving you a noble rank could scare you witless." "It's incompatible with reason and intolerable under the law," Xiao Zhiye said. Li Jianheng paced atop the steps under the eaves. "Don't give me that. Since when are you one to speak of reason? Before the Nanling hunting grounds, we were good brothers who would risk our lives for each other. After that incident, we became sovereign and minister, separated by an impassable rift. Suan, isn't it a good thing for me to be the emperor and you to be the supreme commander? Why do you have to put up a front with me? Just accept the rewards you're given. Cowering like this is unlike you, Xiao Zuan." Xiao Zhiye understood what he meant. "If your majesty wants to reward me with gold and jewels, I'll promptly kowtow and give my thanks. But I won't do it for a noble rank. After serving as an official for 6 years, I have no notable achievements. I feel uneasy receiving your majesty's kindness and becoming a marquis with a snap of the fingers." "What's there to be uneasy about?" Li Jianheng scoffed. "Given our relationship, you should have been conferred a title long ago. The Grand Secretariat interferes with my every move, picking at everything I do. I never had a chance before, but this time, you've earned it. When Lu Pingyan was conferred a title all those years ago, it was because he effectively resisted and repelled the Biansha horsemen at the border. You protected the emperor in Chudu, and in doing so, ensured the safety of our empire and people. I see no difference. If the Grand Secretariat has qualms, there's no rush, said Xiao Chuye. We can't hurt the old officials' feelings. Those old men are always thick-headed and obstinate, Li Jianheng said. How can they be so inflexible? Even brothel girls know when to be flexible and read the room, changing their games according to time and season. Yet these major ministers are still clinging to their rigid rules. How dull. After this scare, I've been thinking about many things. Whether I wished it or not, I've become the emperor. It's not productive to keep crying and whining. We all have to find some way to live on, right? I'm not a reasonable man. If you have something to say, say it. It's not like I'll go execute anyone. I wanted to confer a title upon you, but the Secretariat Elder didn't agree. He led the others to oppose me, saying I was hasty and sloppy in my decisions. I spent nights tossing and turning over this, and they still say I'm too hasty. Li Jianheng turned as he spoke, and the golden dragon on his crown flashed in the moonlight, lending him an imposing air of elegance and nobility. He didn't tell Xiao Chuye to rise. After a long pause, he continued. I'm the emperor. I can't renege on my word. Since the edict has been issued, you'll have to accept it. You've rebuffed me once, but we're brothers, so I won't hold it against you. But if you continue to dig your heels in, then it becomes a problem that can't be settled between brothers. Neither of us will look good then. Deal? Xiao Chuye was silent a moment. Your Majesty, that won't do. The annual review is around the corner. It's a good thing to evaluate old General Lu's noble rank. He deserves it, but not me. It's for the sake of Your Majesty's own reputation that I haven't accepted. I'm someone Your Majesty single-handedly promoted. If my honors don't match my deeds, how can I tend the official duties for Your Majesty in the future? Those who lead troops are concerned with their reputation and dignity. If you show old General due respect, I will benefit by association too. Are these excuses for my sake, or are they for the sake of the Xiao clan? Do you really think I don't understand just because you didn't say it? Li Jianheng stared at him. We're brothers who should treat each other with sincerity, yet you treat me like a fool. I rewarded you because of our friendship, but you turn it down out of self-interest. I told you to be candid with me, and you're still beating around the bush. Xiao Chuye, Li Jianheng bellowed. Where's your conscience? The question reverberated through the cold, dreary night. You're afraid of offending Lu Pingyan. Why is that? Li Jianheng flung his sleeves. You dare say you're loyal to us? You're doing all this for yourself. If you don't dare say it, we'll say it for you. You're afraid of offending Lu Pingyan and ruining the friendship between your clans, which would make it hard to look out for each other in the future. But let us ask you this. The Xiao and Lu each have their respective military forces at the borders. What are you looking out for? Xiao Chuye clenched his fists. His thumb ring jammed in the web between thumb and forefinger. All of you are wolves and tigers. Li Jianheng pointed an accusing finger at Xiao Chuye. All with your mind set on Chudu. We were merely sounding you out, and you showed your true colors. Military powers collude with one another, and the Xiao clan makes common cause with the Lu clan. What comes next? Tell us. What are you going to do? Xiao Chuye abruptly rose onto one knee. He had an imposing physique, and kneeling like this, he resembled a panther ready to spring. Li Jianheng stumbled a few steps back and looked at him, badly shaken. Naturally, it's to do those Biansha baldies in. Xiao Chuye's expression was fierce as he looked at Li Jianheng. 6 years ago, when the Zhongbo troops were routed, my brother rode through the night to come to the emperor's rescue. He risked his life in that battle at Cizhou. Lu Guangbai held a spear in his hands and a dagger in his mouth and fought for 3 nights before he broke through the siege. He raced to Chudu without stopping to rest. Everything Your Majesty has said is an affront to the Xiao and Lu clan's loyalty. You're right. The reason I haven't accepted the conferment is Lu Pingyan. But even more so, it's the unwavering loyalty of the generals who guard our frontiers. It's all thanks to Your Majesty's kindness that I, Xiao Zi'an, a good-for-nothing loafer, can live in Chudu without fearing for my life or worrying about heading off to war. If I can become a high and mighty marquis just like that... What will Marshal T and General Liu, both of whom are still enduring hardships on the frontier, think? More excuses. You're only doing this for your own untainted reputation. My life is worthless, but your majesty is the ruler of our prosperous lands. Xiao Chuye's words were resolute. If you reward me for this minor contribution and end up diminishing the general's loyalty to your majesty, who would be at a greater disadvantage, your majesty or me? Li Jianheng looked hesitant. Xiao Chuye pressed ahead. If this is merely a show I've put on to pander to the Liu clan, why did Secretariat Elder Hai try so hard to dissuade your majesty? Your majesty, you may not trust me, but don't you trust Hai Liangyi, whom the late emperor appointed and who has come to the emperor's rescue thrice? Your majesty has repeatedly met with danger and misfortune, and immediately after, you dish out disproportionate rewards. Whoever it is that's instigating your majesty ought to have their head struck from his shoulders. Li Jianheng seemed to jolt to his senses. He retreated under the eaves, clutching the vermilion pillar for support. The imperial edict has already been issued. Your majesty is the sovereign of a new reign. It is inappropriate to bestow rewards during the earlier period of state mourning. But now that the two great imperial affairs of the spring plowing and annual review are in full swing, why not seize the chance to proclaim a general amnesty and reward the generals at the frontiers according to the merit evaluation from the Ministry of War? Don't stop at advancing Lu Pingyan to the rank of Marquis of Biansha. The Liu clan consistently exterminates the most enemies at the Bianjuan commandery, so it would be wise to reward them with some increase in military provisions. Jueshi had a bumper harvest last year, and their granaries are filled to the brim. By rewarding them grain, the state treasury can save on monetary rewards while relieving the Bianjuan commandery's most pressing needs. Old Commander Ti's wedding is fast approaching. Your Majesty, if you raise Third Lady Hua's status to Commandery Princess, you'd be raising Tidong's prestige as well. Xiao Chuye's words were earnest, his gaze frank. You were the sovereign of a great empire and the common ruler of our vast land. Who could still be discontent when you've bestowed such grace and favor on all? When the Xiande Emperor had ascended the throne, the Empress Dowager decided everything for him. He had thus missed his opportunity to make such a splash during his reign. Li Jianheng's dearest wish right now was to prove himself. He was suspicious and susceptible to others' provocation only because he was afraid of being declared unworthy of his position. Xiao Chuye's words pushed all the right buttons. All right. Now aglow with delight, Li Jianheng came down from the steps to move toward Xiao Chuye. All right. Son, get up quickly. The ground is cold. Fu Man, who had been kneeling below the steps all this while, listened with astonishment. Who would have thought that in just a few hours, Xiao Chuye could seize the opportunity to deal a counterattack and avert personal disaster? Xiao Chuye had a firm grasp on Li Jianheng's character. If he hadn't, he'd never been able to hit the bullseye with a single shot. The more Fu Man thought, the more elated he grew. There's a future for me in following the second young master. Chapter 74. Toast Exchange. The second month of the year was a crucial time for the planting of mulberry and hemp. The various provinces hurried to submit their reports so the Ministry of Revenue might allocate funds. Mountains of trivial affairs piled up, and the ministers of the various departments grew so busy they were wan from exhaustion. Li Jianheng dispensed the planned rewards and conferments, and only then was Xiao Chuye bestowed the title of Marquis of Dingdu. Meanwhile, Shen Zichuan skipped another rank to receive a promotion to third-rank vice commander. He concurrently took up the duties of the northern judge and began to take charge of the imperial prison. The Grand Secretariat initially opposed the promotion, but Sun Yu submitted a memorial with a strong recommendation of his own. After the outbreak of the pox, Hai Liangyi, too, had come to see Shen Zichuan in a new light, and thus it was decided. Xiao Chuye carried the earring case on him, but never found an opportunity to run into Shen Zichuan. He was too busy with the imperial prison. As part of taking up his post, he had to go through all the cases that had accumulated before the new year one at a time. Despite being so busy he forwent meals and sleep, he still sent Xiao Qianya to keep a constant watch on Qi Hongxuan until he could find a way to rescue Qi Huilian and Ji Gong. Young swallows clamored on roof beams, while weeping willows sprouted new shoots. The vermilion walls and green glazed tiles of Chudu gradually appeared under the snow as the sky remained clear and sunny for several days. On a day when spring rain fell uninterrupted, Tang Jiu hosted a feast and invited a few friends from the public ditches incident. Although Hai Liangyi received an invitation, he wasn't one to attend private banquets to begin with and had yet to recover from his illness. He declined. By the time Shen Zichuan arrived, the feast had begun. He was led straight to the main hall. When he lifted the curtain, he saw a group of familiar faces. Han Cheng, Kong Qiu, and Tang Jiu shared a table. Xiao Zhiye was already on his third cup of wine, listening with his elbows on the table to Yu Xiaozai, whose seat was at the bottom, telling jokes to an entire hall of important ministers. The instant Shen Zichuan entered, Yu Xiaozai hurriedly made his obeisance. "Your Excellency is late. Please come have a seat up here." Shen Zichuan removed his cloak with a smile. "There's much to be done in the imperial prison. Please forgive my tardiness. I'll sit lower down." Tang Jiu rose and beckoned to him. "That kind of stuffy etiquette won't do at private banquets. Once you're here, we're all friends, regardless of age. Why stand on ceremony? Lao Han, you tell him." "It's just as he says," Han Cheng said. "Lanzhou, come sit up here. We useless old-timers also have the honor of being in the company of the young Marquis today. Your lordship, have you lowered yourself for us?" "Chief Commander, how can you say so?" Xiao Zhiye seemed a little drunk. He didn't look at Shen Zichuan and merely smiled. "Who here isn't a respected elder? I'll be looking to all of you for advice in the future." Shen Zichuan had taken a seat across the wide table from Xiao Zhiye. Only if he stretched his legs would he be able to reach him. They exchanged no word or glance. Kong Qiu looked left and right at them and remarked with a smile, "I've long heard of the quarrel between the two of you. You won't even greet each other when you meet. You seem to work quite well together during the flooding. Why cling to past grudges?" "The way I see it," Tang Jiu added, "both of you are promising young men, and neither deflects responsibility onto the other in your work. Why not take the chance to bury the hatchet with a smile today?" He raised his hands as he spoke. "The embroidered uniform guard and the Imperial Army should look out for each other. There will be plenty of opportunities to work together in days to come. Your lordship, what say you?" Xiao Zhiye cast a lazy glance at Shen Zichuan, his expression indecipherable. "Why not? What wouldn't I do for a smile from Judge Shen? I should give my proper thanks to His Excellency this time, too. Was there ever a time I didn't greet your lordship with a smile?" Shen Zichuan touched his wine cup. "All that's in the past. There's just been no opportunity before now, isn't that right?" Han Cheng had shared the most drinks with Xiao Zhiye. On seeing this, he took up his chopsticks again and said as he picked at the food, "Well, let's have a drink, your lordship, if you'll do the honors." Yu Xiaozai, who'd been standing all this while, promptly filled both their cups to the brim. Xiao Zhiye held his in both hands and said without getting up, "Then let's toast." He remained seated, as befit his official rank. Shen Zichuan stood, revealing the bones of his wrist as he lifted his cup. "Since this wine is to settle old grudges," Xiao Zhiye said suddenly, "it can't be drunk in the common way. Judge, how about a nuptial..." How about a nuptial exchange of wine? Sir, in front of everybody? Stop. Okay. Han Cheng burst into raucous laughter. He pointed a finger at Xiao Zhiye. "I'm glad I'm not the only one that finds this funny," shaking his head as he sighed. "Your lordship, you're taking advantage. How can you put Lanzhou in such a spot?" "How is this putting him in a spot?" Xiao Zhiye said. "I can scarcely put into words how I love and respect him. Is this not meant to be an expression of our sincerity?" Xiao Chuye, please stop. Knowing Xiao Chuye's temple, Tang Yu suspected he still held a grudge over Zhongbua and meant to make things difficult for Shan Zichuan. Just as he steeled himself to speak up and dissuade Xiao Chuye, Shan Zichuan laughed. Sure, Shan Zichuan said. We'll do as his lordship says. He held up the cup and leaned across the table, giving Xiao Chuye the faintest glimpse of his collarbone. Their arms intertwined. Shan Zichuan's throat bobbed as he swallowed. He could feel Xiao Chuye watching him. His gaze seemed to follow the wine down into that robe. Xiao Chuye drank slowly. He held the wine in his mouth, his eyes never leaving Shan Zichuan. Shan Zichuan could feel his sturdiness where their arms were linked. When he finished, Xiao Chuye seemed to laugh. Yet no one heard it. Only Shan Zichuan lowered his eyes to look at him. His gaze was naked, brimming with dangerous desire. Shan Zichuan withdrew his arm and sat back down, his back clammy with sweat. Xiao Chuye seemed unfazed. He leaned his elbows on the table again and tilted his head to listen to the conversation. Tang Yu was speaking. After the spring planting, it'll be the spring examinations. The Imperial College hopes to recruit new students this year. The upkeep of so many students. Looks like the Ministry of Revenue is in for another headache. Kong Qiu snorted a laugh. What does Wei Huaigu have to complain about? He's the money keeper. It's his job to budget for it. To begin with, all of this should have been arranged much earlier. For him to wait till now to do it is already dereliction of duty. He's the money keeper, and you're the living king of hell. Han Chung sat down his chopsticks, satiated with wine and food. Zhongbua is a right mess, and the cases submitted to the Ministry of Justice from the 6 prefectures are as many as the hairs on an ox. They can't delay sending someone over to take charge there, can they? The Secretariat Elder is still mulling over whom to send, Tang Yu lamented. If Lanzhou formally joins the central administration as a court official, then he might have a chance at it. Whether because of the heat or the wine, Shan Zichuan's face was slightly flushed. I can't, he said. I'm not yet qualified to be assigned out of the capital. I couldn't put down the unrest. Gain a little more experience and you'd do fine. Han Chung's interest was piqued. It said officials from the capital are wily, but how can the capital officials be as slippery and sly as the provincial ones? Some years ago, I went to the outer regions with the Chief Surveillance Bureau to audit the accounts, and I tell you, those local lords and old masters are a cunning bunch. They held 2 versions of all the account books in their residences. Can Chunyi. Even if you went yourself, you couldn't distinguish the real from the fake. He continued, warming to his subject. Every year, when the Imperial Envoy heads down, there's a great flurry of activity. They get the news well in advance and drive away all the disaster victims and refugees in their territories before your arrival. You'll never see them. This is the so-called no-hunger concern in the territory you see in the evaluations. Once you arrive, they'll hold a banquet and think of all kinds of reasons to ply you with wine. You'll drink until daybreak, then sleep until nightfall. You'll be so drunk you can't even walk out of the prefectural yamen on your own 2 feet. What energy would you have to check the accounts? Once the time is up and the silver is pocketed, the evaluation will be marked outstanding, and it's off to the next place to drink. That's considered the end of the audit. But there are still those who do their jobs, Tang Yu pointed out. You can't tar them all with the same brush, he sighed. When Xue Xiuzhou went out a few years ago, he was a formidable force. All the accounts of the 13 cities of Jueshi were sorted out in perfect order without a single error. I really thought he would be assigned to the Ministry of Revenue. Who would have expected the Secretariat Elder to transfer him to the Court of Judicial Review instead? Can he get anywhere as Wei Huaigu's subordinate? Kong Qiu leaned back in his chair. He never had social dealings with Wei Huaigu and Pan Xiangjie. Everyone knew he was friendly with them in public, but held them in little regard in private. So, he wasn't afraid to speak out in Han Chung's presence. The current Vice Minister of the Ministry of Revenue might as well not exist. Wei Huaigu alone calls the shots. It's his final say in the overall management of finances. Wouldn't Xuexiuzhou be rendered useless there? The Secretariat Elder means to polish him. He intends him to achieve great things in the future. Han Chung laughed out loud. Don't discuss state affairs at a private feast. How can you forget this? Lao Kong, you ought to be punished. Seeing they were nearly done with their meal, Cun Yu said, When Yo Jing here returned a few days ago, he told me about a game. The night is young. Why don't we give it a try? Yo Jing, take out those cards of yours. Yu Xiaocai readily produced a wooden box, which he opened to reveal a small stack of carved wooden cards. This humble subordinate learned this game when I went to the port of Yongyi for inspection. You compose paired couplets to match the cards. My lords, would you like to give it a go? Han Chung turned to Xiao Chuye. I'm no good at literary games like this. Your lordship, how about giving me some tips? Xiao Chuye sipped his wine. Does the chief commander think so highly of Xiao Cian? Do I look like a man who reads? It's all in good fun. Why not give it a try? Yu Jing, deal the cards. Yu Xiaocai dealt to Han Chung, Xiao Chuye, and Cun Yu. Xiao Chuye fiddled with his wine cup. He had just given the cards a glance when something brushed his calf under the table. He paused and fixed his gaze on Han Chung's hand. Han Chung froze down at his cards. What am I supposed to do with these flowers and plants? Your lordship, do you recognize this? Throw them a line based on foxtail grass, said Xiao Chuye. I guarantee. A sock foot tapped Xiao Chuye's knee, its sole stepping on his kneecap as if testing its position. Guarantee they'll be stumped. Han Chung tossed the card out and said with a smile, The swallow teases the foxtail. Spring arrives. There, I composed the first line of a couplet. Go ahead, Xunyi, pair it up. Han Chung wasn't a learned man, but he didn't let that hold him back. On hearing his bold attempt, Kong Qiu and Cun Yu laughed. As the three men chatted, Xiao Chuye shot a glance at Shen Zichuan. Shen Zichuan was grasping his fan, a little bamboo one Xiao Chuye had sent him. He tapped it intermittently on the table as he listened to the conversation. As if sensing Xiao Chuye's gaze on him, the corners of his eyes curved in a tiny smile. Beneath the table, that foot had slid between Xiao Chuye's legs, nudging the inside of his thigh as though seeking something. Xiao Chuye held the wine cup with his thumb pressed hard against the rim. Otherwise, he remained motionless. After a while, Xiao Chuye laughed. Isn't that a fox? He picked out an ink-traced fox from among Han Chung's cards and tossed it onto the table. A leaky roof meets a rainy night. A vixen whispers in my dream, where to seek the tide of spring. In that drip drop lies the hint. Sorry, I made it dirty. Han Chung exchanged a toast with Xiao Chuye, then laughed again. We're being serious here, yet you've gone and turned the fox into a vixen. The foot slid slowly down Xiao Chuye's calf, brushing a few times along the curve of muscle. Well, men like me. Xiao Chuye drank his wine and looked at Shen Zichuan. Simply attract foxes. How is any respectable person supposed to follow that? Vixens and spring tides. It's too crude. Kong Qiu laughed, then sighed. Xiao Cian, you don't even latch the door when you sleep. How can you blame someone when they come looking for action? You're obviously looking for it yourself. Xiao Chuye didn't immediately reply, but when that foot stepped gently down on him, he laughed. The upper half of Shen Zichuan's body was so steady nothing seemed amiss. He left off tapping the fan and rubbed his fingertips together. In the stuffy room, Xiao Chuye could almost see the flush creeping into the corners of those eyes. Just then, Cun Yu dropped his card on the ground. Yu Xiaocai immediately stopped what he was doing and made to lean over and pick it up. Shen Zichuan prepared to retract his foot, but unexpectedly, Xiao Chuye reached down and grabbed hold of his ankle. His soul was stepping on Xiao Chuye's heated arousal through the fabric. Xiao Chuye slipped 2 fingers into his white sock and stroked his ankle. Fan brushing the table, Shen Zichuan's hand dropped to the wooden surface. Yu Xiaocai had hiked up the hem of his robe and was bending down. My lords, Please lift your feet. Let this humble subordinate see where it has fallen. Xiao Chuye was unruffled as he gripped Shan Zhichuan's ankle. He exerted gentle force with his thumb, caressing the skin in his grasp until Shan Zhichuan felt a tingle up his spine. He tightened his grip on the fan. Chapter 75. Night Ride. My thoughts. Yu Xiaocai was already squatting down when Xiao Chuye dropped his wine cup. Han Cheng, being nearest, suffered a stained robe. The cards were abandoned as Yu Xiaocai sprang up to fetch a handkerchief for Han Cheng to clean himself. Sun Yu had still been squinting at his cards when the wine splashed him. He hastily tried to dodge, prompting a loud laugh from Kong Qiu. Han Cheng tugged at his sodden robe. Your lordship, you've had too much to drink. Your hands are unsteady. Xiao Chuye raised his hands in apology. Forgive me. I'll have someone send you a replacement tomorrow as compensation. Forget it. It's only a set of robes. How could Han Cheng let Xiao Chuye compensate him? He bent his mouth into a smile. We'll treat this cup as a toast from your lordship. Shan Zhichuan had withdrawn his foot. He leaned over and picked up the card from the floor. As he placed it on the table, he heard Xiao Chuye laughing. The lingering warmth on his ankle seemed to grow hotter amid that sound. Now quite drunk, Kong Qiu struck a porcelain cup with his chopsticks and sang out incomprehensible lyrics, adding to the chaotic atmosphere. He was the polar opposite of his habitual demeanor in court. Sun Yu, seeing Kong Qiu making such a spectacle of himself, tugged on his sleeve. Boran, stop singing. Go home and sleep. You still need to preside over Si Hongxuan's trial the day after tomorrow. Kong Qiu lifted his cup higher and struck it with increasing glee. I didn't forget. I'm investigating him. Thankfully, I was the one who invited you to this feast, Sun Yu said, struggling to keep hold of him. Or else you would surely be impeached for behaving in such an uncouth manner. Let them impeach, cried Kong Qiu. Let them impeach. Imperial censors ought to have the courage to speak. Right, well said, Han Cheng laughed. We've all been saddled with such a massive pile of work, we can scarcely breathe. How often can we enjoy ourselves to the fullest? Let the man sing. It's time to wind down, said Xiao Chuye. If we're carousing too late at night, the Secretariat Elder will have our hides. He got to his feet and called to Chen Yang. Send Lord Kong back in my horse carriage. The attendants swarmed in, and Chen Yang helped Kong Qiu out the door. Sun Yu wiped sweat from his brow and told the remaining men, You don't know this, but Boran was almost once an unconventional and uninhibited person. The Secretariat Elder is rigid about self-restraint and propriety. He had him whipped into shape. See what happens when you drink too much of this wine? Everyone, wait a moment while I tell the cook to put on some soup to sober you up. Drink it before you leave. I was just thinking about your resident's dough drop soup. Han Cheng didn't stand on formality. I'll take lots of vinegar in mine and drink it before leaving. Shan Zhichuan bowed. The Imperial prison still has urgent cases to be processed tomorrow morning, so I'm afraid I can't stay. Everyone, please enjoy your meal. If time permits in the future, I'll invite everyone for another round. Han Cheng knew Shan Zhichuan was indeed busy of late. When you held the post of Southern Judge, you kept a close eye on the military craftsmen. Now that you've transferred to the office of the Northern Judge, there's no need for you to burn the candle at both ends. The men will remember your kind treatment. They won't make things too difficult for you. Shan Zhichuan murmured his acknowledgement. Sun Yu insisted on sending him off. Shan Zhichuan had no way to properly decline, so they walked out the doors together. The rain had grown heavier, and the city was covered in a thick layer of fog. The gust of cool air dispelled their wine-inducing heat, leaving both refreshed. Sun Yu led Shan Zhichuan down the steps. You must have pushed back a great deal of work to make time for our feast tonight. It wasn't too bad. The most urgent cases were finalized before today. Shan Zhichuan replied with a smile. Sun Yu nodded. That's good. Assignments cannot be delayed. He accompanied Shan Zhichuan all the way to the gates, where he ordered someone to hold an umbrella and lantern for him. Sun Yu had a true appreciation for Shan Zhichuan's talents. It was a pity this man served in the embroidered uniform guard. He couldn't help giving him some advice. All the cases in the imperial prison are major affairs. All the cases in the imperial prison are major affairs. Not even the 3 judicial offices can interfere, Sun Yu said. In coming into this position, you've enjoyed what some would call a meteoric rise. You must speak with caution and act with prudence. They say standing close to the sovereign is as perilous as lying with a tiger. Those who work well in the presence of the emperor are all born intelligent and quick-witted. But you needn't worry overmuch about your qualifications. You're already remarkably successful, given your youth. You have a long way ahead of you. Just remember, there's no need to be anxious about anything other than your assignments. He paused. The Marquis of Dingdu isn't a narrow-minded man either. You two are bound to work together in the future. Tonight you've buried the hatchet with a toast. Perhaps you'll never be soulmates. But it's still better to be friends who can look out for each other than enemies who clash each time you meet. Lanzhou, you're a talented young man. I hope to see you work hard and achieve success in your career. Sun Yu spoke with such sincerity, Shen Zichuan was moved in spite of himself. He bowed low. Sun Yu helped him up, saying, "The road is slippery on rainy nights. Be careful on your way. Off you go." At last, Shen Zichuan pulled on the pristinely white fur coat Li Jianheng had bestowed on him and bade farewell to Sun Yu. He didn't step into the sedan, but let Xiao Tianya hold up the umbrella for him as master and servant walked into the rain. The two hadn't been walking long when the thunder of hoofbeats rose behind them. Definitely Xiao Tianya. Xiao Tianya shook rainwater off the umbrella as he stepped aside. As expected, he saw Xiao Tianya on horseback, galloping toward them at full speed. Good timing. Xiao Tianya's voice was drowned out as Xiao Tianya bent down to scoop Shen Zichuan up onto his horse and galloped off with him. The water droplets kicked up by Snowcrest's hooves soaked Xiao... Let's try that again. The water droplets kicked up by Snowcrest's hooves soaked Xiao Tianya. He spread his arms open and slowly finished. "Want to drink some shaojiu?" Xiao Tianya was strong and well-built. Even holding Shen Zichuan in his arms didn't slow him down. He hugged Shen Zichuan tightly to his chest, firm as an iron wall. Snowcrest galloped through the rain like a bolt of lightning through the stormy dark. Its hooves sped over the countless puddles, throwing up a spray of water as it charged for the city gates. The guard at the top of the wall raised his lantern. "Who goes there? Who's riding so late at night?" Xiao Tianya pulled his cloak up to fold Shen Zichuan under it before raising his authority token. "Open the gate." "Supreme Marquis." The platoon commander atop the wall immediately made obeisance, then waved his hands and ordered, "Quick, open the gates." The gates opened with a deafening rumble, and Snowcrest shot through like an arrow. Night wind whipped against their cheeks. Snowcrest galloped faster and faster, while a circling gerfalcon burst out from the rain and followed closely behind. Shen Zichuan held onto Snowcrest's neck. "We can't go far. Tomorrow morning..." Xiao Tianya grabbed Shen Zichuan's chin and lifted it to kiss him. Shen Zichuan was no practiced rider. Other than Xiao Tianya, he had nothing to hold on to as they raced like the wind. With one hand pressed against the galloping horse and the other clutching Xiao Tianya for support, there was no way to look at the road in front of them. The driving rain stung his eyes as they kissed. They hadn't seen each other for 7 or 8 days. So they thirsty. Xiao Tianya embraced Shen Zichuan tightly in one hand, pressing him to his chest as he kissed down along his cheek to the side of his neck. Shen Zichuan's clothes were in disarray. The official's robe beneath his white fur coat tugged open. When he lifted his eyes, all he could see was the jet-black expanse of rain. Water droplets trickled along the curve of his collar, drenching his clothes and chilling his skin. He crushed Xiao Tianya's robe in his hand and gasped for breath. The rain poured harder and louder as Snowcrest ran blindly into the black. The path before them was hidden in the long, dark night, the horse like a lone boat carrying a pair of lovers on their secret rendezvous. Shen Zichuan shivered. He closed his eyes as he took Xiao Tianya in. bathed in sweat and rainwater. Wait, I have to prepare myself to read this. Xiao Chuye said nothing as the horse's hooves trod through the mud. The path was uneven. Each bump and jolt drew a gasp from Shan Zitran's lips. Xiao Chuye too was sweating lightly with exertion. Spurred by the potent wine, he clung to Shan Zitran in this wild moment of pleasure, making every rise and fall strike just the right spot. He was in high spirits after this evening, and he used his strength skillfully, leaving Shan Zitran incapable of resistance and unable to escape. Are you satisfied now? Seeing that Shan Zitran wanted to lean away, Xiao Chuye clasped his hand and pulled him back to enclose him in his arms. Pressed tight against him, Shan Zitran said, Next time, make sure you get the right spot. Xiao Chuye's hand came up to stroke Shan Zitran's earlobe, fastening an object there. He pushed aside those drenched locks and kissed it. Shan Zitran raised his head, and the jade earring swayed with his movement. He touched the pendant in a daze. Several times he opened his mouth to speak, but was disrupted by a jarring step and his gasps for breath. Riding the waves of euphoria, he gazed at Xiao Chuye with a conflicting blend of understanding and incomprehension. Xiao Chuye killed off his last remaining inhibitions. He was done holding back. A warm spring day was bad news indeed. This was the season for fun. Scoundrels all like to have fun. As long as they were together, they could stir up a wave from calm waters. Every time their eyes met, it was with impure motives. The shiver up each of their spines when they seduced each other was so strong, it could shake apart their masks of decency. No one understood the ardent desire burning beneath their officials' robes. As long as they were alone, they would bear their true colors. Oh my God. That concludes the reading of Ballad of Sword and Wine, Volume 2. And Tang Jiu Qing seems to have a way that they like to end their books. So is this going to happen every time? Like what? Although we did get a little in the middle as well. The later half of the story. Whew. Well, y'all know we are discussing this in detail on Friday, which is, I believe, February the 6th. Yes? Hold on. Let me make sure. Yes, February the 6th. So, I will see you all then. We're going to have a great time. And let's do this. Shall we? Also, hold on. Oh, hold on. I might have to change the time of that. I just realized I have something conflicting on my schedule. Dun, dun, dun! Oh no. Okay, I'm saying all of this in the recording, but there's going to be a post made before y'all even hear this.